Well, hey there, everyone. It is the time of the year that we all look forward to, and that, of course, is the postseason. The women getting started first. They are in Greenville, South Carolina, like they are every year for the SEC tournament. Of course, we know Arkansas has been pretty successful in this tournament the past couple of years under Mike Neighbors. And, you know, as I bring in now our Tara Talmadge. Tara, me and you were there in Greenville a year ago watching this tournament unfold for the Razorbacks. It's crazy to think again what's happened in that year.
I was about to say that was the last sporting event I think that you and I both went to before everything got shut down, and it was so much fun to be there. I actually posted today on Twitter. It was one of the videos that I took from when Arkansas beat A&M last year to advance to the semifinals. They came back from down like 17 points in that game, and everyone was just so excited. It's got to be a different atmosphere this year without many fans, or really any fans, I think, at, you know,
yeah, the fans were such a big part of that. I mean, do you remember the Texas A&M game where Arkansas was down and they end up, you know, coming back and making that comeback that they did, which is what your video was from. And you know, you remember the Texas A&M fans. They became part of the game. I mean, they're screaming at Alexis Tolfree. And speaking of Alexis Tolfree, we're going to catch up with her later on in our segment. But they were screaming, Arkansas's getting loud. Everyone, then Arkansas wins, and everyone's cheering and high-fiving. I mean, that was a part of the atmosphere, and that's not going to be a part of any atmosphere at Bon Secours Wellness Arena this weekend.
Yeah, I completely forgot about the A&M fans kind of
screaming at her.
That was brutal. Man, I don't know if you guys could watch it on TV, but we were in the stadium and we were like, "Oh, can you do that?"
Yeah.
So no, that was fun. And I remember Mike Neighbors hugging Hunter Yurachek after that game, lifting him up off the ground. That was definitely, I don't know, that's a fun relationship right there. But hopefully they can start things off in this SEC tournament again with a win.
Yeah, well, it starts with Ole Miss, and this is a team they played just 13 days ago. We're able to beat at Bud Walton by 10. But, you know, it was a game also, too, that Ole Miss was really, it got chippy. Not just between the players, the coaches a little bit, too, the coaches and the refs. And it was just a really high, intense game. I'm interested to see almost what, like, take two of this game looks like.
Especially in a tournament-style game. Like, I know that the previous matchup was interesting. I think they had some delays with weather and stuff, so they pushed the game back. But when you're in a tournament, I mean, it's just there's not a lot of pressure on Arkansas in terms of the NCAA tournament, but they know that they can win this whole thing if they really want to. They probably could. And so there's that on the line, and then you've got Ole Miss, who definitely wants some redemption, and I'm sure there's probably going to be some more chippiness in this game.
Yeah, they're the 11 seed, and they kind of caught a break with Vanderbilt not finishing out their season. They would have played the 14 seed, and then that winner played tonight, but they didn't have to, so they haven't played a game. And Mike Neighbors honestly said that's a good thing. And you kind of be like, well, why would that be a good thing? They could be tired, but it's almost the opposite is true. He goes, we were that team, that 11 seed or 14 seed that ran all the way. And once you win one, you're feeling good. The rims are familiar. The court's more familiar. You're not maybe coming off a slow start that you kind of hope doesn't happen with Arkansas tonight. So we'll see how this matchup pairs well. I'm going to play a soundbite from Mike Neighbors talking about this Ole Miss game and facing the Rebels again this year.
Probably would have been if you got your choice of who you'd like to draw on, that's not the one. I think they're playing really well. I think they are starting to peak at the right time, obviously with their performance. I thought they played well against us, and I think they've played well in all those games since. We're so close. We've recruited so many kids against each other. A lot of these kids have played against each other. There was a lot of competitiveness going on, and it did get chippy. There's no question about it. So I'm sure there will be some carryover. How you manage and handle those is always important. Talking about it is the first step, but going out and doing it is the second. But I do think that that makes for a good atmosphere. It makes for a cool thing. Level heads always do tend to prevail, but I think that excitement is what tournaments are about. So we'll embrace it. But we'll certainly talk about how to manage it and make sure that we are poised if those things arise.
Mike Neighbors talking about if it happens, we'll embrace it. Talking about the chippiness, Tara, of these two teams, and he's like, they've got I don't want to say egos, that's not the right word, but a lot of confidence on both of these teams. You know, you've got a Chelsea Dungy who was not named SEC Player of the Year. She was very vocal about how she was kind of upset about that and said, hey, we have a tournament to win. You know, I feel bad for Ole Miss. So you know she's coming tonight with a lot of things to prove. And we've seen what Chelsea Dungy's been able to do. I think at the end of the day, regardless of the attitude and the intensity of this game, if Arkansas just does what it does well, and that's obviously put up points, they'll win this game no problem.
Yeah, I mean, you mentioned Chelsea Dungy, and I'm sure that she, feels like she got looked over once again. It's happened to her before, and we've seen her come out after those things and have huge games. She had another one against Ole Miss. She had 38 points in that game of the Hogs, 84 points in the total game. So, and Arkansas only beat Ole Miss in that one by like 10 points. So you need other people to step up and not just bank on Dungy putting up almost 40 every single game. We saw that Amber Ramirez is fully capable of it. She dropped, I think, 5 3-pointers the other night against Alabama.
Yeah.
I mean, it's
impressive.
Wild.
Yeah.
So they're capable of that type of performance. I'm curious if we'll see it tonight.
Yeah, you hope so. I mean, we've seen this team down the stretch playing really, really well, but we've also seen this team look very uncharacteristic this year, and both of us are looking at each other like, what is going on? Amber Ramirez can't hit a 3. Layups for Chelsea Dungy aren't falling, so obviously you don't want that to happen, but we've seen it happen.
Yeah.
So hopefully this team comes out and is performing the way that they have down the stretch. We've got a lot of questions. A lot of people agree with us that Chelsea Dungy should have been Player of the Year, and I think you're going to find a lot of Hog fans that think that. Wondering where Alexis Tolfree is right now. She's actually playing overseas. We'll talk to her in just a second, but bringing up some just pointers as we look at Arkansas' start to the SEC tournament. We talked about Chelsea Dungy right now. She's averaging 22.2 points per game this season. That not only leads the team, but also leads the league in points per game this year in the SEC. Destiny Slocum, by the way, as we talk about that game against Ole Miss on February 19th, did not play in that game. She had some kind of stomach bug or some kind of something. It was not COVID related. Not COVID related. That's important to stress. But that is something, they get Destiny Slocum back, who was second team all SEC, and that's going to be a big addition for them that they didn't have the first time. And then, of course, just look at a reminder of the history with this team. In 2019, they fell in the championship game to Mississippi State, and last year they fell in the semifinals to South Carolina. So the Bon Secours Wellness Arena in Greenville, South Carolina is a place Mike Neighbors loves to play. He joked and wished we could play all our home games here because we're so successful here. And so that this is a place they like to play. The rims are nice and kind to the Arkansas Razorbacks as of late. So we're hoping that it shows again tonight. Again, I mentioned we caught up with Alexis Tolfree to talk about this SEC tournament kicking off for the Razorbacks. Joining us now, former Hog Alexis Tolfree from overseas, by the way. Lex, thanks for joining us as we get ready to kick off the SEC tournament. You're no stranger, to this tournament. We've seen what you can do and how you've helped the Razorbacks in their run the past 2 years. But what have you seen from this team, and what makes them fit to win this thing this year?
I've seen an incredible fight from this team, and the love and how they play for each other each and every game. This team is very special. They beat the number 1 team in the nation, so I know that there's a lot that they have left to prove with being seeded so low in the tournament this year. So I'm just excited.
You mentioned seeding. I think it's wild. You've got the number 13 team in the country in Arkansas, and they're a 6 seed in the SEC tournament. That just speaks to how loaded the SEC is in women's basketball.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I went and looked at the bracket, and they were a 6 seed, and I'm just looking like the 13th in the nation. But you got to remember that a lot of the teams in the SEC are also ranked. So it'll be a battle for them, but they can do it.
Yeah. What do you, if you think back to the SEC tournament and the 2 runs that you guys went on, do you have a favorite moment from that?
Well, in the past 2 years, we beat Texas A&M twice. After losing two conference games to them. We come in the tournament with something to prove, a chip on our shoulder, and we get the job done. And I think that was the most memorable for me in my 2 years there.
Hey, I mean, not to bring up any, thing. I mean, we were there in Greenville last year when you guys beat Texas A&M, right? And I know that it got chippy, maybe with the fans, but that was probably the most rewarding game, I think, for you especially.
Yeah, it did get a little chippy with the fans. Coach Neighbors definitely had my back that game though, so yeah, it got it. My mom actually mentioned that the other day.
They're about to take on Ole Miss. They beat Ole Miss in the regular season. You want to talk about a chippy game? That one was a little chippy during the regular season. But if they beat Ole Miss today, they move on to play Tennessee. Just in general, when you look at this team, what does Arkansas need to do to get a win tonight?
I just think they need to stay focused and play with that chip on their shoulder like they have been the last 5 games they've won. People probably doubt them and what they can do, but they just need to do the game plan, because I know Coach Todd has put in an excellent game plan for them, and they know what's going to happen. They know that it's going to get chippy. They know it's going to be a fight. Ole Miss is not just going to give it to them, but they have everything they need to win.
On Tuesday, Chelsea Dungy said we have a tournament to win. That was after she did not win SEC Player of the Year. And I know that you're very vocal about that and opinionated, and most of us believe that Chelsea deserved that honor. You've seen what Chelsea Dungy can do in the postseason, how she turns it up a notch, and feels like every year she enters this tournament with a chip on her shoulder. What are you expecting from her?
I mean, I might be biased, but she should have been SEC Player of the Year hands down. I mean, she's definitely Player of the Year to me, without a doubt, without a question. But this just gives her something to prove. I hate it for whoever they have to play, because I've seen what she did my junior year when she should have won SEC Player of the Year, and they didn't give it to her that year. She came out and I think broke every record in the SEC tournament that there was to break scoring wise, and led us to the finals. And so I think that with that happening with her, and then also Amber Ramirez getting no accolades out of the postseason or the season, I think she'll have a chip on her shoulder with something to prove. And I just think that the SEC just gave Arkansas something to fight for.
We'll let you go after this question, but Alexis, you're a big part of this program, as Mike Neighbors will always point out. You and some of the few that came before you helped pave the way for where this team is right now. They're about to, without a question, make the NCAA tournament for the first time since 2014. How proud of you of this group of women that you played with a year ago?
I'm extremely proud. I mean, I've been vocal to all of them about it, especially the ones that I physically got to play with. I've been vocal about it, and they have exceeded every expectation that I have placed on them for this year. I learned my lesson on placing the expectations on them after they beat Baylor. And so I don't know. I'm just super proud of them, and I just know that with everything that has happened with the postseason awards or whatever, that they're just gonna come out and just show people, like, look, we're here to stay. And Coach Neighbors has done an amazing job bringing us from 14th in the conference to where we are now. And so it's nothing more to say. I mean, I'm just extremely proud of them, and I'm proud to have been a Razorback.
Well, I tell you what, Alexis Stolfer, you're still a fan favorite around here, even though you're gone. And I know that you're killing it overseas. And we appreciate you, by the way. For people who don't know, this is like a 7-hour difference. So shout out to you joining us right now overseas. And of course, we love following your professional career right now. And we thank you for the time, Alexis.
Of course.
Mike Neighbors and trusted him, and he's talked a lot about how much he appreciates her taking a chance on Arkansas.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, Chelsea Dungy is going to leave Arkansas as one of the most successful players in program history, and that's just not the women, that's the men as well.
In general.
And it's pretty impressive what she's been able to do, and again, what Mike Neighbors has been able to do. But I'm ready to see what this team does in the SEC tournament. I've been watching just to make sure this game hasn't started. A look at the matchup, obviously, Arkansas is the 6th seed. Ole Miss is the 11th seed. This one's scheduled to tip off around 7:30. With these tournaments, you always know, they always say 25 minutes after the game before it, and so you never know when that one ends. But roughly 7:30, I would just go ahead and just put on the SEC Network now, and you're not going to miss it. I think you'll be good to go. All right, again, Arkansas and Ole Miss, we appreciate you joining our pregame coverage. If the Razorbacks win, they move on to play 3 seed Tennessee tomorrow around the same time. And so we will be right back here streaming to you live, talking about that matchup against the Volunteers. So thanks very much for joining us. Let's go watch the Razorbacks and hope we're talking more women's basketball tomorrow. Thanks for joining us, everyone.